Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 20. I guess I shouldn't say welcome back to, I should say welcome to episode 27 of Macabre Matinee with Craig and Sean. As per usual, I am Craig Lance.
And I'm Sean, bearded Kappa Litton, and once again, because we just had to have her back on the show, we have Miss Lauren Hughes.
Hey guys.
Yeah, welcome back. We had so much fun on the last episode. We brought you back for another one.
I feel so honored.
The only repeat guest. So, yeah, you are the first.
The only guest and certainly the only repeat guest we've had.
Yeah.
So this is where we issue our weekly spoiler warning. We are going to be talking about The Lost Boys. If you haven't seen this movie, it is now time to pause our show, go watch The Lost Boys from 1987, and come back and listen to us ramble on about it for about a half hour or so. So, as I said, we are going to talk about The Lost Boys. It was written by Jan Fisher, James Jeremias, and Jeffrey Boehm, directed by Joel Schumacher, which was kind of surprising to me.
Oh, really?
It had been a long time since I watched it, and it was like, really? Okay, yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but I just didn't remember that, yeah.
Thinking about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, when you stop and think about it, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that here soonly.
So this movie has a lot of people in it. It has Jason Patrick as Michael, Corey Haim as Sam, Diana Weist as Lucy, Edward Herman as Max, Kiefer Sutherland as David, Jamie Gertz as Star, and Corey Feldman as Edgar Frog. And those are just the people that are named actors that are in this, like A-list type actors that are in this movie. So this story begins with the recently divorced Lucy moving her teenage children from Phoenix to the small oceanside town of Santa Carla, California. I am from California. Santa Carla is a made-up town, people.
Oh.
It does not really exist.
Now you're killing the dream, Craig. Thanks.
I mean, it's based off of Santa Clara, I believe, but as the kids try to integrate themselves into the new city, they slowly learn of Santa Carla's dark underground. Sam becomes friends with the Frog Brothers, a couple of teenagers that sell comics and then on the weekends apparently fight vampires in town.
Yeah.
They warn Sam and give him a comic book to read that could potentially save his life, with their phone number written in the back, I guess, or stamped in the back. In the meantime, Michael becomes infatuated with the beautiful Star. The only problem is Star already has a love interest, and that love interest is David, who runs the local hooligans and street thug gang. And Sean, how do we know they are the local street thug gang?
Well, if I learned anything from our video about the Crow, it is because they wear that nefarious leather clothing.
And have earrings. That is a sure sign in the 80s that you are rad dudes with bad tubes.
That is the best way I've ever heard the film described
now. So David invites Michael to hang out with them. Michael begrudgingly, wow, I can almost get that word out, goes along, mainly because of Star. Once in their lair, which is a hotel that sunk below the city after an earthquake in 1906, David decides to have dinner and feeds Michael a bowl of maggots and a bowl of worms, and then gives him some blood wine. Literally gives Michael wine made from David's own blood, or at least we're meant to believe it's David's blood.
Right. I think that's once the reveal happens about what the transformation starts. Yeah, because where it might have actually come from is that bigger mystery later in the movie.
They do say it's David's blood multiple times, but I don't feel like it is. So
I completely missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because David even drinks it, which would just be weird. So
it's his own brand. It makes perfect sense.
He grows his own vintage blood wine.
Yeah.
So Lucy, in the meantime, has begun dating her boss, the owner of a local video store, Max, which also lets us know it's the 80s because he owns a video store. Michael soon starts exhibiting the signs of being a vampire, to which Sam quickly catches on. And after Sam and the Frog Brothers rule out Max as the head vampire, they focus their vampire hunting energy on David and his friends. Michael, Sam, Star, and the Frog Brothers concoct a brilliant Scooby-Doo plan to kill the vampires, luring them to Michael and Sam's house. The kids eventually kill all the vampires, including David, but why hasn't Michael transformed back into a human, and why does Star still not feel human? Well, that is because Mom is also dating a vampire, Max, who happens to be the lead vampire, and Grandpa takes care of Max, and that's pretty much that. I mean, there's a whole lot more that happens in this movie, but that's kind of the 30,000-foot view, so to speak.
Yeah, there is a shit ton of things that happen on here. And I have to do this, and I thoroughly apologize in advance for this. But my very first note makes me have to say this on here. Soundtrack, Cry, Little Sister, Thou shalt not kill. I fucking love that song so much. And it is like the theme song for the entire movie.
You can't think of this movie either without thinking about The Doors, right?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Cry Little Sister was written for the movie, so.
Oh, right. I mean, just completely great. And then also, beautiful mullets all throughout. This is pure 1987 gorgeous moulets going throughout this thing. And speaking of gorgeous, I think I want to let y'all know, it took every fiber of my being not to just make the only image y'all listening to us right now are seeing is the buff saxophone player. I did include other images.
John Michael's twin brother.
Yeah. There are other images, but I think I did fill up about 70% of it with just the buff saxophone player, GIFs, pictures, and memes. You're welcome.
Well, Tim Capello was a beautiful man.
Absolutely.
So in our last show, we talked quite a bit about how that movie led to the goth kind of subculture in America. This movie has Kiefer Sutherland, who, outside of Johnny Depp and Brandon Lee as the Crow, may be the biggest goth person of that time period in this country. He certainly it kind of exuded it in this movie and a couple of others he was in. It and Stand By Me. Is that what it is? Stand By Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he definitely has done his share of dark films, but this one, I mean, I'm raving about the mullets. I love it. His spiked up.
The mullets are fantastic. Yeah.
And even at the time, yeah, of course, everyone's rocking that. You look at the crowd, which something that struck me while watching this film. I'm like, some of these people look like people I see today. Like, I don't know if we've come full circle or it's just timeless style.
I'm gonna have to say it's timeless style,
right?
Speaking of timeless style, Sam certainly wears some great clothes in this movie, right?
Woo, that with that one long striped robe, I'm like, I can get with that one.
Yeah. I mean, as somebody that grew up in the 80s, boy, did that bring back some memories watching this movie.
But, yeah, like, this whole movie...
No, go for it.
I was going to say, this movie screams the 80s in all the best ways to me. Again, it is a story about, you got the new kid in town, vampire peer pressure. It was a major problem in 1987, especially with beach trash out here. That you can tell me about that, Greg. You're from California, but
yeah.
Again, it's just like I'm quoting the lines through the movie as it's going. It's just a lot of fun. A very Schumacher film, which as we've come to see Schumacher, this is pretty early, I want to say, in his directorial career. But
I think it was like his second or third one.
Right. Like I said,
I want to say
pretty early on, but you'll definitely see some of the there's certain terms I always got to apologize ahead of time to make sure like this is not necessarily in a negative fashion, but it's the corniness of this film in all the best ways.
It's 80s corniness. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
But it's like I love. Again, we mentioned y'all have seen the picture. If you haven't watched this film, you're seeing the image of you said his name earlier. Lauren, I've already forgotten it, unfortunately. The buff sax player. It's just there's no reason for it. It could have literally just been them walking on the beach with that music if they really wanted that song in the movie. But no, we have an amazing concert being shown while Michael is chasing Star around, trying to like infatuated
while he's playing the saxophone behind a burning trash can in front of him, because that's just the way concerts were back then, apparently.
I'm gonna take your word for it.
So I'm gonna blow your guys' mind a little bit. This movie is basically the Karate Kid told through vampires.
What?
Okay.
Oh, that's certainly
the divorced mom moves them to a city by the ocean in California. The lead falls in love with a girl that's already got a boyfriend. The boyfriend and the guy fight a lot. Eventually, the protagonist has to become what the antagonist is in order to defeat him.
Oh, no.
You know what? All right, it's there a little bit, Craig. I'm gonna let you have that, but
it's the Karate Kid.
Well, now I want a Cobra Kai of just David and his crew spinoff later on Netflix.
Oh no!
Somehow they're back. No, I don't know how to make that happen.
I know it's a stretch. Yeah. I was playing.
I appreciate it.
There are certainly some parallels, I guess I would say.
No, absolutely.
Some parallels to Peter Pan, which is why it's called The Lost Boys, I believe.
Well, yes.
You have a group of kids that can't grow up. You have a father figure that's looking for a mother figure to keep them under control.
Right.
Certainly some parallels there.
Oh, for sure. Now, like, once again, Lorna, we brought you in because we know how much you love this film. So, like, why don't you give us a good breakdown what this film, what you love about it, what it means to you. Why are you a big fan of
it? Well, first of all, it's definitely up there with like my favorite vampire movies, and I have loved the vampires since I was little bitty, like the Count on Sesame Street little bitty.
Right.
And actually, first saw this movie at a sleepover when I was 8 years old, and it terrified me at the time because these weren't the vampires that you saw. Well, let's say it was the whole sleepover was this, The Craft, and the first two Alien movies, so I didn't sleep at all that night.
Wow, that's a hell of a start.
we can certainly see how goth maybe played a part of your culture.
Oh, definitely. But seeing this movie at 8 was terrifying. But as I got older and started realizing, like, these were the good, like, well thought out types of vampires, and then you have to look at all the vampire movies that were made in the 80s.
Right.
And just like stuff like Once Bitten and Fright Night, The Hunger, Near Dark, and
you named a couple of very good movies in there.
Yeah.
Oh, fun little trivia fact. And I had it's like a millisecond in the movie, but there's a poster of Once Bitten in the movie store.
Really?
Oh wow!
I missed that one. Okay. So a nice little.
But I was just like, oh, nice little tidbit there. But
right.
I just everything from the fashion to just the way that they were portrayed. Like, and when I say these are some beautiful, beautiful vampires, they're not.
Oh, yeah.
Even like with like the prosthetics and everything, these aren't the wimpy vampires from the movie We Shall Not Name that I can't stand. They are good, solid vampires.
I had to think.
She's talking about the one that happens right before nighttime. It has that time period between daylight and nighttime.
Yeah, it literally.
That's the one she's referencing.
It took me a second because I try not to think about that at all. So I was like, what is she talking about? Where are they weak? Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But these.
Talking about the beauty, you've got Jason Patrick and Kiefer Sutherland just going, head to head in their acting chops in this movie.
Oh yeah.
And yes. Really, absolutely just carries this movie the way these two interact and act when they're in the same scenes together, especially.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
And I'm not afraid to say I think the sexual tension was high, and I'm all for it. Because there was some hatred, but they was looking at each other. There was some eye contact being made in that hate. And I'm all 100% cool with that. No, but that's I think that's a little the Schumacher leaking out. That's my own opinion on it, but it was still but very again I wrote in there how it was vampire peer pressure. All that, and wanting the girl, like you said, kind of Karate Kid. I'm following you on that. That lured Michael into trouble,
as you should.
Yeah, he's already it is that tale of the out of towner who not happy to be there, and just immediately falls in with a bad crowd, and which of course the den of evil. And I'm not even talking about the hotel that collapsed that they live in, but the video rental store. That is clearly where all evil, the head vampire runs the video rental store, which now I really need a comic book or a web series. I need a series of the Frog Brothers figuring out that all rental stores are owned by vampires, and that's why Blockbuster no longer exists.
You really don't need those series. I've read other comic book, like Lost Boys comic books.
Those exist?
Featuring the Frog Brothers. Oh yeah, they exist.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I'll make a better one.
You don't need them. Let me just say that.
No. Mine, like I said, this is them taking down the Blockbuster Corporation because that's where all vampire lords run video rental stores.
At one point they do say that they're pretty sure that ghouls and werewolves are running the city council. So.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Which I kind of want to see that movie as well. Yeah, we got rid of the vampire problem. Yeah, we got rid of the vampire problem in Santa Carla, but what about the werewolf problem?
Oh yeah.
And that's one thing this movie actually does. We can poke some fun at some of this, but it actually does some things really, really well.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is where it latches on to the vampire lore. Doesn't try to reinvent it. It just kind of it gives you a modern take on it, maybe, but it certainly is the same old lore of ever, right? Like the only thing that they took out was that garlic doesn't mother them.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole the invitation thing, which that started with Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think there was a lot of elements of classic vampire lore in this film. As you said, modern. I'm kind of repeating what you said, but 100% agree is what I mean.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the powers, the rules, to even just David and them hanging upside down by their very ugly feet, when they're sleeping. That's this classic vampire stuff, even in the modern setting. So I think this movie pays a lot of tribute to the older vampire films, books, and lore and stuff, which I think was, could have easily been ignored, especially in the 80s where they all had their own, horror movies especially were kind of finding their own niche, their own, footing. But this one I think had that and paid tribute to the classic stuff, which I think is why it's a standout.
Well, and it does a lot of things too, in that it doesn't take itself too seriously while maintaining the tension of the horror movie that it is, right? So it's got a lot of funny scenes in it when you have Sam and the Frog Brothers trying to get prepared for their Scooby-Doo plan when they're getting they go to the church and get the holy water out of the Catholic Church, and they're in the middle of a baptism, and they just don't even care. They're just
it kills me every time.
Oh, absolutely. And again, the humor cutting into even the dark, which I think it maintained a very good balance. I mean, it's my favorite quote from the movie, but it's also just one of my favorite movie quotes of all time, of just you're a vampire, Michael, a creature of the night, My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. Wait till mom hears about this, buddy.
Yeah, that kills me every time too.
It's so well delivered of just like, how do you deal with the fact that your brother is turned into a vampire? And he just, I'm gonna tell mom on you.
And he's just hanging outside the window
right.
because he can't control his power of flight yet.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
And
that's what this movie does really well. It kind of combines elements of like the Goonies with a vampire movie. That you have like this, you know, instead of an adventure, it's a horror story, but you have these kids trying to figure it out on their own, which a lot of vampires have that, where it's the kids having to defend the town against the vampires.
Right.
But they did this exceptionally well in this movie, in my opinion.
Oh, it was actually initially written as that Goonie style movie with like the vampires being like these 13, 14-year-old vampires and the Frog Brothers being like these. This is like a quote, 8-year-old chubby Boy Scouts. And this is when Richard Donner had control over the movie. But once Joel Schumacher took over, that's when it switched over to the sexier, the more mature script.
Of course.
Right. Yes. he definitely Schumachered it in all the best ways possible.
but again, I don't think that this movie is the same without the three, I will say, older stars. You know, Jason Patric, Kiefer Sutherland, and Jamie Gertz. Right. Without those three, you remove any one of those three, and it's probably not the same movie.
Oh yeah, I definitely
just
agree
from
with that.
You know, just from the way, yeah. So, I mean, in my opinion, they made a good choice. They made an iconic choice. They have a movie that's lasted. And yes, we can make fun of the very 80s stuff in there, and we should.
Oh, yeah, you know, but there's also... Sorry, I was just, kind of jumping in there, sorry. But, like, the tension this film does. This film has, like, while there is, like, from the mystery at first of not understanding, you know, what's going on with the flying cam, basically, of them swooping in on that security guard in the opening. To, honestly, I think one of the most tense moments of the movie is Michael trying to fight it as he's stalking towards his brother in the bathtub.
Yep.
And which also gives a shout.
Yes.
Right. And it gets a good shout out to the MVP of the movie, my boy Nanook. He ain't playing none of Michael's vampire bullshit. He fucking went after it. Which
protecting his boy, man. Right,
which I also liked because like they established within the movie about the vampires use hellhounds, which in Thorn for I'm going blank on the lead vampire's
Max.
Name. Max, thank you.
Max.
Having Thorn, I liked that Michael and Sam had Nanook in their own kind of like he had his own guardian dog as well. A little dichotomy there, I guess.
And Nanook is another kind of throwback to Peter Pan. Wendy and the boys had a
Nana.
Nana, the dog.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So
for sure.
Yeah, there it's definitely got some tie-ins there, and you can feel it when you're watching it.
Oh, no doubt.
I got a shout out for that particular scene. Definitely give some props to like V. Neal, who is one of the most amazing like makeup artists, and then Greg Canham, who did the actual vampire prosthetics. But during that scene, as Michael opens the door, like other than like the tired like dark circles under his eyes, you can see that they put clouded contacts on him.
Right.
And it took a couple of times, like, going back to that scene to be like, that's another detail that they just threw in and maybe not everybody noticed, but it's important.
Right. They're showing his transformation isn't completed yet.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, which is a big part of this. It's very similar to, you brought up Fright Night from that time period, where it was the same thing. If he could kill the main vampire before his girlfriend finished transforming, she could be saved, which was a very iconic thing in vampire movies at the time.
Right.
So, it just keeps all of that lore in it. It does so many of these things. It's a slow turn for Michael. They're slowly trying to get him to become a vampire up until the point when David says, "Okay, Michael, your initiation's over. It's time for you to become one of us."
Right, because it's not completed till you make your first kill and drink somebody's blood, right?
That's that's the scenario they set up in this movie. That's the rules for this movie. Is it until you've made your first kill, you're a fledgling, I guess you could say.
Because that was they were luring him in for Star originally, right?
Yeah. So Star, he was intended to be Star's first victim, but then David and Star took a liking to him, and one thing led to another.
Which I also like that, when Michael goes to find them and find Star in there, and he's like, he just went through all that, the flying, the transformation, the wanting to kill his brother. He's like, "What's happening? What's happening to me?" She's like, "No time, sex." Like, okay, cool. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later, I guess.
80s,
80s movies. Very teenage, very teenager thing. We would be like, okay, cool. This first.
Yeah, I'll figure out what's happening to me later.
Right. Well, yeah.
And the grandpa makes a funny line when Michael gets home that day too.
Oh, right. Which grandpa too? That actor, he absolutely killed it. He just quirky, likable, and you get that mist and how it all ties back together. You're like, we're gonna drive into town. He barely goes like, "This is close. I'd like to get to town." And just very off that, and then just that closing line. The one thing I can't stand about Santa Clara is all the damn vampires.
Iconic. He was such a great character.
Oh yeah, and got the final kill.
Yes.
Kind of a quirkier Van Helsing kind of thing going with him.
Right. Yeah. Definitely the older Van Helsing kind of guy in the background that you didn't even know was fighting the vampires, but yet he was.
And also about with the Vampire Hunters, talking about the Frog Brothers. What I really like about them is how, granted, they knew their shit, but when the shit got real, they were kids. They would scream, they would run, they would panic. They weren't like, I feel like if this was made nowadays, they would be literally like the kid badasses that are almost too damn good for as young as they are. Like, but this showed them as like, hey, we know our shit with their ultra deep low voices that they were trying to do the entire time. but again, when it came down to them getting in there, they were all for it, but they still showed fear. It showed, this layers on the characters that could have easily just been kind of not throwaway, but the side characters that didn't need much depth to them.
Well, if Alex Winter would have brought his friend John Wick with him to help protect him when he was sleeping, the Frog Brothers would have never killed.
It's true. Well, and I'll get into that here in a second. I wasn't going to make the reference, but you did it for me.
Well, of course you have to. It's Bill and he's from Bill and Ted, right? So he's only known for two movies: the Bill and Ted movies and Lost Boys. So you kind of have to point it out.
And have an amazing hair in both.
Yes, he did, and even grew it into a mullet for this one.
Did a curly mullet, and that's extra effort.
Yep.
Bun gold.
Yep. So I was going to ask Lorna. So obviously you watched this very young, apparently. I know I did watch it to the team, but I wouldn't have been allowed to watch anything. No way to sneak it, being as young as you did. So, what about this movie has really, having watched it so young and it's stuck with you? Like, you said you were terrified, but what drew you back to it, and what's made you, like it still to this day?
Just the whole feel of it. It's a very iconic movie. It's got its own... You say it's got this 80s wardrobe, but it's got this very dark feel to it, but with a little bit of comedy. Right. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It hits all points of being a good movie without having to pay a ton of attention to it. It's one of my feel-good movies, hands down.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's actually a very good descriptor to it, because it's a good film. It's not a perfect film, and it's not a film you necessarily have to it's not trying to be anything deep, not trying to be anything serious. It is a fun 80s vampire film that can get dark at times, but also be very light. Yeah, no, that's a perfect breakdown of this film.
Well, it was, even though it was rated R, it really was a perfect teenager horror movie.
Right.
Nowadays this movie would probably get a PG-13. Because it's really only got a couple of scenes that even go gory, right?
Yeah, and I think they only dropped one F-bomb, which you're allowed to in PG-13 now. So yeah, this could have been PG-13.
Yeah. I think going back into the gore of it, just thinking about like there's just not a ton of there's not a gross out factor. Like you've got your little bits here and there, but the one scene at the bonfire, that is the scene that got me, and it's still to this day where he peels back the scalp. I was just like, nope, no, I'm walking away for a second.
Yeah,
I still can't do it.
Oh no, for sure, no. But there is. I will talk about one scene. I do find it very offensive, and I do want to talk about that though, because we're praising the film, but we do got to talk about something that is in this film that I still do not agree with. There's a shit ton of comic books that are not bagged and board in this fucking film. And it really drives me.
No, there's not.
Those street
none
thugs
of them
stole a
wrong.
bunch of
Number
books.
one was though,
right? But which I love that we meet the Frog Brothers in a comic book shop, and it is an '80s. I can only imagine never being out there. I don't know if there were like big open comic book stores like that, Craig, where you were growing up, but like. No. Big front box full of dollar books, and those sons of bitches just grabbed them and ran. That offends me to my nerd core.
Well, and it's like even if you watch Sam, the way he handles the comic books, you're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
You don't fold.
Yeah, from a kid that's supposed to have Batman #4, and he's throwing comics around the way he does.
Oh, he does. Ooh. He does. He just has it rolled up in his back pocket like you're supposed to. Not before nerds started saying we have to treat him in mint. But that is
well. In fairness, this happened all right before the death of Superman and all of that. So that was when people started freaking out about the pricing of comic books.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah. Overall, just a good, fun, solid movie. Scary, tense when it needs to be, funny when it needs to be. The fact that their poor mom can't even finish a date. Now, granted, she's on a date with a vampire, but
it's for the best.
Still, it really is for the best. You should listen to your children once in a while.
I still love the fact that she's named Lucy after the Dracula story.
Oh, for sure. I didn't even catch that, but and she's redheaded. Yeah,
I didn't even connect.
Yeah,
that. Nice. Yeah, I didn't even make that connection. I was sitting there the whole time.
It took me a second.
Right, I was just sitting. I'll be honest. Like the actress, she did great. The mom was great in that film. The whole time I'm trying to think, like, is this the lady from Rosemary's Baby? Because I know it's not. Is it?
No,
it's not. I still haven't watched that film, but the shortcut she's rocking, which looks great on her. But this made me just think of that for some reason the entire time. But yeah, so I didn't even think about the Dracula connection. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't even think on that.
I like the little literary references in it because Edgar and Allan.
Oh yeah.
Frog. Edgar, yeah, that's great.
Oh yeah, that one was caught that. If I missed that, I'd have to walk off this show right now. Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just a fantastic film. I think we're all pretty much in agreement on that.
Yeah. So you said that the movie that's or the scene that's iconic to you was the bonfire scene. Is that kind of your horror movie moment of the movie?
Not quite. That's like second moment.
Okay, so what is yours first?
My first is, Death by Stereo.
That's pretty great, though, too.
That is a great one.
Well, and it's such a great scene, and reading the production notes about it, it took weeks to film and do the post-production on it and all the effects behind it. And all of that work went into a 15-second moment. Right. And you just got to sit back and think, that's a lot of work for just that one moment, but it paid off. Because that's probably the most beautiful vampire on the movie. But just to watch him just go poof was amazing.
Wow. I was going to ask, because I know on Facebook, though, we've done those challenges, pick between two, and they'll put, Michael and David, and you seem always so torn.
Oh, hands down, Michael. I love Michael. As soon as he got introduced, and then, seeing Jason, Patrick, and, Rush.
Right.
It was just this guy is so awesome and he's so talented. So yeah, definitely a Michael fan.
Okay.
It always surprised me that he didn't do. I mean, he's had a fine career. Don't get me wrong, but it's always surprised me that he wasn't a bigger star than he was.
Oh yeah.
So, Sean, what's your horror movie moment?
I almost picked Death by Stereo. I'll be very honest, because the line just makes that so great.
Right.
But I had to pick something else for some good reasons, as well as I had to make the joke. So bear with me. It is Marco being stabbed while hanging upside down, because that is just classic vampire staking. A lot of blood poured out, and he ended up with just a bogus journey. I had to. I had to do it.
Oh, you're fired.
Yeah. All right.
So, yeah, mine was originally the bonfire scene for the same reason you said. The peeling back the guy's skull is just amazing. But quite honestly, the death in the bathtub, the vampire death in the bathtub full of holy water, was pretty epic.
Yes.
Ending in a pile of vampire bones at the end. So, and then, they're like, oh yeah, the Frog Brothers are like, we ran into one and we took him out with a little help of Nanook.
Nanook MVP.
Right?
Again, you, man.
Yeah. So, I would go with that one for my iconic scene.
All of them are damn good picks, because there's so many iconic scenes. Any choice honestly probably would have been the correct one.
I'm really surprised you didn't pick the guy having the concert playing the sax. So
look, that's not a horror movie moment. That's a dreamy man.
Oh, it is.
Okay,
it is a horror movie.
That dude is ripped and glistening and rocking that sax. And you know what? He's doing him, and I'm all for it.
So, do we have anything else we need to add to this discussion?
I know you had mentioned earlier that Santa Carlo was probably based off of Santa Clara. You said?
I think so, yeah.
It was actually, I did my research because I love this movie again. But it's actually Santa Cruz.
Okay. That makes sense too because of the boardwalk. So,
and Santa Cruz was once named murder capital of the world.
Okay.
Because in the 70s, between like 1970 and 1973, there's these three men who went on a killing spree and killed 28 people in a 30-month time period.
Wow.
Were they vampires?
Was the Frog Brothers?
No, they would have been too young then. Right. What if it was their parents?
That's it. But did the people own video stores?
No, those did not exist.
I had to throw back to my amazing idea that I'm going to have to publish myself, apparently.
Hey, I'll read it.
Right?
All right. Anything else? If not, we'll go ahead and
I think we covered it.
Rate it, and okay. Well, Lorna, why don't you start us off with your grade on this one?
I'm going to give it a solid 3.5. Just because where it is truly an iconic movie, it's got a lot of wonderful elements. It still goes back to the camp and corn of a Joel Schumacher movie.
Right.
Absolutely. So, Sean?
Just for my love of camp and corn, and there, my soul wants to give it 5 saxophone players rating. But yeah, no, it's to me, and I'm honestly surprised I'm rating it higher than you, Lorna. To be very honest, I'm disappointed in you. No, I give it still a solid 4.5. I love this film.
Okay. Well, I agree with Lorna. I'm giving this a 3.5.
You guys are fools. Fools, I say.
No, don't.
I'm joking. Sorry, go ahead.
It is a great movie. I love this movie. I watch it anytime it's on, and I'm flipping through. I guess, but there are some very dated aspects of this movie.
Yeah.
The Schumacher camp is a little over the top in some parts, and For those reasons, it gets a 3.5, but that does not mean you should not watch this because that is still above an average.
Absolutely.
So, and the three of us divided out there, it comes out at almost a 4, so that's worth watching by any rating standards.
That's a damn good rating, actually.
Yep.
Well, all right. Well, if we haven't sold you enough, I'm gonna say it one more time. Go ahead and watch this damn film, and enjoy yourselves. And we hope you enjoyed listening to us talk. Lorna, again, thank you for joining us on our show to talk about some awesome horror movies.
It was definitely my pleasure. And if you ever need me again, you know where to find me.
Absolutely.
We do indeed. All right. Well,
thanks again.
All right. That's going to do it for now.
Of course.
We'll catch y'all later.